The golden ship descended through wispy clouds toward the blue planet. Commander Zira had only seen in intelligence reports. She stood tall, her iridescent scales catching the light of the distant sun as she observed Earth for the first time. The humans were a primitive species by Lyraxian standards, but their resilience intrigued the galactic community. Zira belonged to the elite Lyraxian Imperium, a race known for their advanced technology and strict hierarchical society. As a royal commander, she was tasked with making first official contact with Earth after years of covert observation. Her mission assess human compatibility with the Galactic Alliance and determine if they deserved inclusion. The landing site selected was a remote area, in what humans called Montana, away from major population centers. The ship settled gently on the grassy plain. Zira adjusted her ceremonial armor made of a lightweight metal unknown to Earth science and checked the translation device embedded near her throat gills. Susan Taylor, chief xenobiologist for the United Nations Space Agency, drove her vehicle across the rocky terrain. Her heart raced with excitement after receiving the encrypted coordinates mere hours ago, after years of searching. For proof of alien life, the evidence had literally landed in her backyard. The government wanted to send military personnel, but Susan had convinced them that a scientist should make first contact. As Susan approached, she saw the magnificent golden vessel gleaming in the afternoon sun. It was shaped like an elongated teardrop with no visible seams or joints, completely unlike any human craft. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as she parked her vehicle and stepped out into the warm, airy section of the ship. Suddenly shimmered and dissolved. Revealing an opening, Zira emerged, her 7-foot frame towering and regal. Her scales shifted from gold to purple as she moved the biological response to the new atmosphere. Her 4 amber eyes blinked in sequence, adjusting to Earth sunlight. Susan froze, her breath caught in her throat. The alien was beautiful in an otherworldly way, with elegant proportions and movements that seemed almost liquid. She took a tentative step forward, raising her empty hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Zira assessed the human female with curiosity. These creatures were less physically impressive than Lyraxians, but this one showed courage, approaching alone. She activated her translator and spoke, her voice melodic yet authoritative. "Human, you stand before Commander Zira, 3rd Monarch of the Lyraxian Imperium, 17th Fleet. Why do you approach my vessel?" Susan swallowed hard, finding her voice. "My name is Susan Taylor. I represent Earth. I come in peace to welcome you to our world." Zira tilted her head, the gesture causing ripples of color to flow across her scales. "You dare gaze directly at me. Human custom on my world. Only equals may share direct eye contact." Susan immediately lowered her gaze, concerned. She had committed a serious protocol breach. "I apologize for any offense, Commander Zira. We have much to learn about each other." Unexpectedly, Zira moved closer, her tall frame casting a shadow over Susan. The commander studied the human with growing interest. These creatures were emotional and expressive qualities considered weaknesses in Lyraxian culture. Yet they had advanced remarkably despite their short lifespans. "You may look at me, Susan Taylor. I am curious about your kind," Zira said, her translator capturing the subtle inflections of her native language. The two began to talk, Susan explaining Earth history and social structures, while Zira shared limited information about the galactic community. The conversation flowed more easily than either expected, finding surprising commonalities despite their different biologies. Over the next several days, Zira and Susan established a temporary base of operations near the landing site. Susan brought fellow scientist Kelly Monroe to help document their interactions. While governments worldwide scrambled to respond to the alien arrival, the small team worked peacefully, sharing knowledge. Kelly, a brilliant linguist, quickly began learning the actual Lyraxian language rather than relying on the translator. She discovered subtle nuances that revealed more about their visitors than Zira perhaps intended. The Lyraxians were not merely exploring. They were assessing, one evening as they reviewed star charts. Zira revealed the truth. "Your species is being evaluated. Human advancement has caught the attention of several galactic powers. Some see you as threats to be contained, others as potential allies." Susan felt a chill despite the warm night. What does that mean for Earth? Zira hesitated, her scales darkening. My superiors believe humans are too unpredictable, too emotional for full alliance status. They fear your kind would disrupt the balance we have maintained for millennia. They sent me to make a recommendation. And what will you recommend? Kelly asked. Setting aside her notes, I have not decided, Zira admitted. The Imperium values order above all else. Your species embraces chaos, innovation, constant change. These qualities make you dangerous, in their view. Susan stood walking to the edge of their camp to look at the stars, now knowing many hosted intelligent life. The revelation that Earth hung in the balance of one alien commander's judgment was overwhelming. Days turned to weeks as more specialists joined their camp. Zira received regular communications from her fleet orbiting discreetly beyond human detection range. Her superiors grew impatient, demanding her final assessment. Meanwhile, Susan found herself drawn to the alien commander. Despite their differences, Zira possessed a quiet wisdom and unexpected compassion beneath her formal exterior. Susan often caught Zira watching human interactions with fascination, particularly displays of emotion. When a spring storm rolled through their camp, Susan discovered Zira standing outside her ship, arms outstretched, letting the rain cascade over her scales. The commander turned, sensing Susan's presence. Your water falls freely from the sky, she said, wonder in her voice. On my homeworld, water is carefully regulated, collected, and distributed according to rank. This abundance is extraordinary. Susan smiled, seeing Earth's ordinary rain through new eyes. There are places on Earth where water is similarly precious, she explained. But here, yes, we often take it for granted. Zira studied the human carefully. You value things differently than we do. Your people argue and disagree openly, express emotions that my kind would conceal. I find it both chaotic and fascinating. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a military convoy. Susan recognized the insignia of the Strategic Defense Initiative, General Pamela Hodges. A woman known for her hardline approach to national security stepped from the lead. Vehicle Commander Taylor. The general addressed Susan, ignoring Zira completely. I need to speak with you privately. Susan glanced apologetically at Zira before following the general a short distance away. The president is concerned about your reports, Hodges said, keeping her voice low. These aliens are clearly assessing us for weaknesses. We need access to their technology. That is not their purpose here. Susan protested. They are determining if we are ready for inclusion in a larger galactic community. Hodges scoffed. Ready? How convenient. While we wait to be judged worthy, they gather intelligence on our defenses and capabilities. Susan maintained her composure despite her frustration. General, with respect, Commander Zira has been transparent about her mission. Any aggressive action now would confirm their worst fears about humanity, unknown to both women. Zira could hear their entire exchange. Her species had evolved exceptional auditory capabilities. The commander's scales darkened as she listened. The human military leader confirmed the concerns her superiors had expressed about Earth. When Susan returned, Zira had retreated to her ship. The door sealed behind her, leaving Susan standing alone in the rain. Inside her vessel, Zira opened a secure communication channel to the Lyraxian High Command. The eldest of her superiors, a female with silver scales, appeared on the screen. Commander. Zira, your assessment is overdue, the elder said without greeting. I require more time. Your Eminence. Zira replied. The situation is complex. The elder hissed softly, her neck frills expanding with displeasure. Our scouts observed military forces arriving at your location. The humans show their true nature, despite your attempts to find value in them. Zira felt torn between duty and something new she had learned from humans' intuition. The elder was right, yet also wrong. The military leaders were suspicious. Yes, but Susan and her scientific team represented a different aspect of humanity. Some humans are defensive. Others seek understanding. I believe there is potential here, Zira argued. The elder studied her carefully. You have spent too much time among them. Commander, your judgment appears compromised. Return to the fleet. We will send another to complete the assessment. Zira bowed her head as protocol demanded. But inside she felt a growing certainty that the Imperium was making a mistake. Humans were imperfect, but their capacity for growth was remarkable. Outside, Susan waited, hoping Zira would emerge. When the alien commander finally appeared, her demeanor had changed, becoming formal. "Distant, I have been ordered to return to my fleet," she announced. "My superiors will send another to continue the evaluation." Susan stepped closer, sensing something was wrong. "What happened? You happened," Zira said quietly. "Your kind happened. You are unpredictable, dangerous. You fight among yourselves, yet claim to seek peace. Your military leaders speak of defense while planning to steal our technology. I can't deny. Some humans think that way," Susan replied. "But that's not all we are. Please don't judge our entire species by our worst examples." Zira tilted her head, studying Susan with all four eyes. "Your words echo what I tried to tell my superiors. Perhaps that is why they believe I am compromised." Susan felt a flicker of hope. "Then you don't think we're hopeless?" The commander was silent for a long moment. "My personal opinion has become irrelevant. I have been relieved of my assessment duties. I depart tomorrow." That night Susan could not sleep. The thought of Zira leaving with Earth still undecided felt wrong, somehow incomplete. In the early morning hours she drove to the ship, finding Zira outside watching the sunrise. "It's beautiful," she said, noticing Susan approach. "The colors remind me of home, though our sun burns hotter." Susan stood beside the commander. "I wanted to thank you before you left, for giving us a chance." Zira turned, her scales rippling with subtle blues and purples. "I should thank you, Susan Taylor. You have shown me that there is more to understanding a species than assessing their technology or military capability." "When my replacement arrives," Zira continued, her voice lower, "I fear they will not see what I have seen. They will focus on your weapons, your divisions, your fears." "What can we do?" Susan asked. The commander seemed to make a decision. "In my culture, when a judgment is contested, the subject may appeal directly to the council. Such an appeal must be delivered in person. It has not been done in 7 generations. Are you suggesting?" Susan began. "I am suggesting nothing," Zira interrupted firmly. "I am merely sharing cultural information. The council resides on our central diplomatic vessel currently orbiting your 6th planet. What you do with this information is your choice." Susan understood. The commander could not directly help Earth, but was providing a path, a chance. It would mean leaving Earth, traveling to an alien ship with no guarantees. It would mean trusting Zira completely if someone wanted to reach this council. She asked carefully, how would they do it? Zira gestured toward her ship. "My vessel is programmed to return to the fleet. It leaves tomorrow at first light. The security protocols recognize my biological signature, and that of any being in my direct company." Susan nodded slowly, processing what that meant. "Would your superiors punish you for bringing a human to the council?" "Punishment is likely," Zira acknowledged, "but not certain. The Laraxian value order, but also recognize initiative when the stakes are sufficiently high." They stood side by side, watching Earth's sun climb higher in the sky. Two beings from worlds light years apart, facing a decision that might change the course of human history. "I should prepare," Susan said finally. Zira inclined her head, saying nothing. Her scales shifted briefly to gold, the color of hope in Laraxian biology, though Susan did not know this. That evening, Susan informed Kelly of her plan. The linguist was shocked, but quickly understood the importance. "You can't tell anyone," Kelly warned. "Not even the director. If word gets out, the military will try to stop you." Susan nodded, packing only essential items in a small bag. "I know it's better if everyone believes I just went with Zira as part of the diplomatic process. Once we're gone, they can't exactly follow." Kelly hugged her friend tightly. "This is crazy brave. You know that, right?" Susan managed a smile. "If there's even a chance of securing Earth's place in this galactic community, it's worth the risk. The alternative is being left behind, possibly labeled as too dangerous for contact." Before dawn, Susan arrived at the ship. Zira waited by the entrance, her tall frame silhouetted against the vessels. Glow you came, the commander said. I did, Susan replied, simply. As they entered the ship, Susan felt a momentary panic. The reality of leaving Earth, trusting her life to an alien civilization, suddenly overwhelming her. But she steadied herself, focusing on the greater purpose. The interior of the vessel was nothing like human spacecraft. No hard angles or exposed machinery. Instead, organic curves and surfaces that seemed almost alive. Lights pulsed gently along pathways in the floor, guiding them to the command center. Secure yourself, Zira instructed, gesturing to what appeared to be a contoured seat designed for Laraxian physiology. Susan did her best, fitting awkwardly into the alien furniture. The ship hummed to life systems activating in sequence. No countdown, no verbal confirmation, just a gradual increase in energy. She felt a slight pressure as they lifted off the earth, falling away beneath them. The ascent was remarkably smooth. Nothing like the violent rocket launches Susan had witnessed on Earth. Within minutes, they had passed through the atmosphere. The curve of the planet became visible, stars emerging in the blackness of space. Zira manipulated controls that responded to her touch with subtle color changes. Ahead, Susan could see the moon growing larger. The ship accelerated at speeds that should have crushed them. Yet she felt only the slightest sensation of movement. The journey to Saturn, where the Laraxian diplomatic vessel orbited, would take hours, not months, as human technology would require. Susan watched her home planet recede, a blue marble against the vastness of space. Do you fear what you have done? Zira asked, breaking the silence. Susan considered the question. Yes and no. I fear the consequences if we fail, but I don't regret coming. The commander studied her. Those two statements seem contradictory. Susan smiled slightly. Humans often hold contradictory feelings. It's part of what makes us human. Fear doesn't have to prevent action. Zira contemplated this, her head tilted in what Susan now recognized as a gesture of consideration. Fascinating. My kind would see such contradiction as a flaw, yet you embrace it. As they traveled, Zira explained more about the Laraxian Council and their protocols. The 7 senior members represented different factions within their society, from the traditionally conservative military to the more progressive scientific community. The key, Susan Zira emphasized, is to speak directly and honestly. Laraxians value truth above eloquence. Unlike your politicians, we have no concept of diplomatic lies. Every word you say will be evaluated not just for content but for biological signs of deception. Susan nodded nervously. I understand. You will be the first human most of them have seen. Zira continued. Some may be immediately dismissive. You must remain composed regardless of provocation. Hours later, they approached Saturn, its magnificent ring stretching across their view screen. Beyond it, Susan could see a massive vessel unlike anything in human imagination. It resembled a living coral structure, shimmering with internal light stretched nearly 5 miles across. The diplomatic vessel, Zira explained. The center of Laraxian operations in your solar system. As they approached, alarm signals flashed across Zira's control panel. She quickly manipulated the interface. What is it? Susan asked. They are ordering us to stop, Zira replied. They have detected your human biosignature. The commander opened a communication channel, speaking rapidly in her native language. The sounds were unlike anything Susan had heard before, clicks, whistles, and rumbling tones that no human vocal cord could produce. The response was immediate and clearly negative. Zira turned to Susan. Her scales darkened to deep purple. They have ordered me to dock in a containment bay. They consider my actions a serious breach of protocol. Susan felt her heart sink. Will they listen to us at all? Zira stood to her full height, her posture becoming regal, defiant. They will have no choice. I invoke the right of direct appeal. An ancient privilege that even the Council cannot deny. But be prepared, they will not make this easy. Their ship was guided into a massive docking bay. Armored Laraxian guards waited as the door opened. Susan got her first glimpse of other members of Zira's species. They were similar in basic form but with variations in scale, color, and pattern. Some were even taller than Zira, their neck frills more elaborate, indicating higher rank. Commander Zira, a guard, addressed her in the translated language. "You have violated direct orders. Explain yourself. I invoke the right of appeal before the High Council." Zira responded formally. "The human Susan Taylor will present Earth's case for consideration." The guards exchanged glances, clearly surprised. One stepped forward. "Oh, risk everything for these creatures. That is my right," Zira replied simply. They were escorted through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they passed. Susan noticed other aliens, not Lyraxians, observing them with obvious curiosity. Earth had been isolated for so long, completely unaware of the complex political ecosystem existing beyond their atmosphere. Finally, they reached an enormous chamber. The walls curved upward to form a dome that displayed what appeared to be a real-time map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems highlighted and connected by glowing lines. Susan stared in wonder at the scale of it all, realizing how small Earth truly was in the grand scheme. 7 Lyraxians sat in a semicircle on raised platforms. Their scales ranged from deep blue to silver to a color Susan could not even name. Each wore elaborate ceremonial armor that caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. "Commander Zira," the central figure spoke, her voice echoing in the chamber. "You bring an unauthorized human before the council. This action borders on treason. I invoke the ancient right, the right of a commander to challenge assessment protocols when extraordinary circumstances warrant intervention." Zira responded, her posture perfect, her voice steady. The council members shifted, clearly uncomfortable with this unexpected development. One with silvery scales leaned forward, examining Susan with all 4 eyes. "So this is a human. The creature seems fragile, unimpressive." Susan stood tall beside Zira, refusing to be intimidated, though her heart pounded in her chest. Another council member spoke. "This appeal is unprecedented. The human species is still under evaluation. Their containment status has not been determined." Zira stepped forward. "I believe the standard protocols are insufficient in this case. Humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Their contradictions cannot be properly assessed through our traditional methods." The silver-scaled Lyraxian, whom Susan recognized as the elder from Zira's earlier communication, made a dismissive gesture. "Commander, your judgment has been compromised. Your time on Earth has clouded your perspective. Perhaps Zira acknowledged, or perhaps it has cleared it. I request the human be allowed to speak. The ancient right grants this privilege." A tense silence fell over the chamber. The council members communicated silently through subtle shifts in scale, color, and posture. Finally, the central figure nodded. "Speak human, but know that deception will be detected and punished. Your words may determine your entire species' fate." Susan took a deep breath, stepping forward. She had prepared for this moment during their journey, practicing what she would say. But now, facing these powerful beings, she chose to speak from her heart. "Instead, members of the council, my name is Susan Taylor. I come before you, not as a representative of any government, but as a member of humanity. I understand you find us contradictory, unpredictable, perhaps even dangerous. These observations are not wrong. We are all of these things." She paused, seeing she had their attention. "At least, humans fight among ourselves. Yes, we struggle with violence, greed, fear, but we also create beauty, seek knowledge, sacrifice for others, and dream of better futures. Our history is filled with both terrible darkness and brilliant light. We contain these contradictions because we are still growing, still evolving." One council member interrupted. "Your kind develops weapons before solving basic social problems. You pollute your own planet, yet speak of joining a galactic community. How can such a species be trusted?" Susan nodded, acknowledging the criticism. "Fair questions. We make mistakes, many of them. But what defines humanity is not that we fall, but that we keep trying to rise. We learn slowly, sometimes painfully, but we do learn. A century ago, we fought world wars. Now, we collaborate on space exploration. We still have far to go, but our trajectory matters. The Silver Elder made a dismissive sound. Pretty words. But your military leaders have already expressed interest in acquiring our technology. Your kind always seeks advantage. Yes, Susan admitted honestly. Some of us do. But others seek understanding, connection, knowledge for its own sake. You judge us at a single point in our development. Would you want to be judged by your own past? This caused a stir among the council members. They conferred among themselves in their native language. Susan glanced at Zira, who remained perfectly still, giving nothing away. The central figure addressed Susan again. Your argument suggests we should judge you by your potential, rather than your present reality. That is not how the Imperium operates. Susan considered her words carefully. Then perhaps the Imperium's methods need to evolve as well. Judge us by our present, yes, but recognize that it contains the seeds of our future. The same creativity that makes us unpredictable also lets us imagine possibilities beyond our current limitations. That is humanity's greatest strength. Another council member leaned forward, addressing Zira. Now, Commander, you have spent time among these humans. Do you believe what this one says represents their true nature? Zira stepped forward, her scales shifting to a calm blue. Humans contain multitudes, Elder. They are contradictory. Yes, but in those contradictions lies remarkable potential. They feel deeply, question, constantly create endlessly. I have observed them show kindness when cruelty would be easier, seen them value truth over comfort, choose hope despite evidence. Against all reason, they believe they can become better than they are. And sometimes, remarkably, they do. The chamber fell silent as the council absorbed these words. Susan felt a surge of gratitude toward the alien commander who had come to understand humanity better than many humans did. The central figure spoke. We will deliberate. The human will remain here under guard. Commander Zira, you have invoked ancient privilege, but if your judgment proves flawed, consequences will follow. Zira bowed slightly, accepting this. The council members rose in unison, exiting through an aperture that appeared in the chamber wall. Susan and Zira were left with 4 armed guards. What happens now? Susan whispered. Zira kept her gaze forward. They will debate. They may take hours or days. Laraxians do not rush judgment. Before Susan could respond, a commotion erupted outside the chamber. Guards rushed in, surrounding them. Weapons raised. Elder Kiza has ordered the human detained immediately, one announced. The Earth military has launched vessels toward our position. They approach. With weapons active, Susan's heart sank. No, that can't be right. Zira turned to her. Did you inform others of our destination? No, Susan protested. Only Kelly knew, and she wouldn't tell anyone. But the military has tracking systems. They might have followed. Your ship. The guards moved closer, their weapons humming with energy. Wait. Zira commanded. This changes nothing. The council must still render judgment. The ancient right cannot be invalidated by external actions. The head guard hesitated. The elder has ordered. The elder is one voice on the council. Zira interrupted, her scales flashing with authority. I remain a royal commander until formally stripped of rank. You will stand down. Susan watched in amazement as the guards actually lowered their weapons. Responding to Zira's natural authority, a new voice entered the conversation. The human speaks truth about their contradictions. A Laraxian. Susan hadn't seen before entered the chamber. His scales were deep green, indicating, according to what Zira had taught her, a member of the scientific caste. He carried a communication device displaying data. Earth vessels approach, but their weapons are in defensive configuration, not attack posture, he reported. They broadcast messages requesting dialogue. The guards looked uncertain, trapped between conflicting orders. Susan stepped forward cautiously. May I suggest a solution? Let me communicate. With the Earth vessels, I can explain the situation, ask them to withdraw. The green-scaled scientist considered this a logical approach. The human understands her own kind. Before anyone could respond, the council members returned their entrance, silencing the room. The central figure took her position, regarding Susan and Zira with all 4 eyes. We have detected Earth vessels approaching our position. This confirms our concerns about human unpredictability. Susan spoke quickly, forgetting protocol. Honorable Council, those ships came looking for me, not knowing I chose to come here. They fear for my safety, not understanding the larger picture. Let me speak with them. I can explain, the elder hissed. No. The human attempts to manipulate us. This proves their kind cannot be trusted. Commander Zira stepped forward, her posture perfectly balanced between respect and confidence. I request permission for Susan Taylor to communicate with her kind. This situation offers an opportunity to observe human diplomacy in action. Would this not provide valuable assessment data? Susan realized what Zira was doing, framing the request in terms the Council would understand as beneficial to their purpose. The central figure considered this perspective, a single communication. The Council leader decided, monitored by U.S. Susan, was brought to a communication station. Her message to Earth was simple and direct, explaining her voluntary presence, requesting the vessels withdraw and allow the diplomatic process to continue. She emphasized that her safety was not at risk and that humanity's future might depend on their compliance. The Earth vessels responded almost immediately. The commander identified herself as General Hodges, the same military leader who had visited their camp. Dr. Taylor, we detected your departure and feared coercion. The general explained, we cannot in good conscience leave you in alien custody. Susan replied firmly, General, I appreciate your concern, but your presence here jeopardizes everything. Commander, Zira and I are trying to accomplish. I am here by choice, representing humanity's interests before the Luraxian Council. Please withdraw your vessels. There was a long pause. The Luraxian Council members observed the exchange with intense interest, studying this real-time demonstration of human interaction. Finally, General Hodges responded, Very well, Dr. Taylor. We will withdraw to lunar orbit, but remain on standby. Should you require extraction, simply say the word umbrella, and we will respond immediately. Susan thanked her, understanding the coded message but having no intention of using it. The communication ended and she turned to face the Council. The Earth vessels are withdrawing, she reported. They were concerned for my safety. Nothing more. The Council members conferred briefly. Then the central figure spoke. We have made our determination, based on Commander Zira's testimony, your own words, and this demonstration of communication. We grant Earth provisional status within the galactic community. Susan could hardly believe what she was hearing. Provisional status, the central figure continued. Earth will be allowed limited contact with approved species under Luraxian supervision. Technology exchanges will be carefully monitored. A permanent diplomatic presence will be established. The Imperium will observe human development for one full cycle of your planet around its sun, before reconsidering full membership status. It was more than Susan had dared hope for. She bowed deeply to the Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I promise Earth will prove worthy of your trust. The elder still appeared skeptical. The human makes promises she cannot guarantee. True, Susan acknowledged. I speak only for myself, but I believe in humanity's capacity to rise to this challenge. When people understand what is at stake, most will choose wisdom over fear. The Council session concluded formally. Susan and Zira were escorted from the chamber. As they walked through the massive ship, Susan tried to process everything that had happened. You took an enormous risk, Zira said quietly once they were alone. You did too, Susan replied. Why? Zira was silent for a long moment, her scales shifting through subtle patterns of blue and gold. Finally she spoke. When we first met, you looked at me directly against protocol. But your gaze held no fear, no aggression, only wonder. That moment made me question everything I thought I knew about your species. Susan smiled, remembering I was terrified actually, but mostly amazed. You were the most beautiful being I had ever seen. Zira made a sound Susan had never heard before. It took her a moment to realize the commander was laughing. In the following weeks, Susan became Earth's first official ambassador to the galactic community. A small Luraxian delegation established a diplomatic outpost on Earth, causing both excitement and concern among humans. Government leaders, scientists, religious figures, and ordinary citizens all struggled to adjust to the new reality that humanity was not alone in the universe. Kelly joined Susan as part of the diplomatic team, her linguistic skills proving invaluable. Together with Zira, they created frameworks for cultural exchange, educational programs, and eventually limited technology sharing. Wasn't always smooth Earth politics complicated matters? Nationalist factions feared alien influence. Religious groups debated the spiritual implications. Corporations schemed for technological advantages. But gradually, a new normal emerged. 1 year later, Susan stood with Zira watching sunrise from the diplomatic compound. The Earth vessels had departed the solar system, traveling back to their home planet, but Zira had chosen to remain as permanent liaison to Earth. A decision that surprised many in the Imperium. The Council will review Earth status soon. Zira noted her scales shimmering in the early light. Susan nodded, aware of how crucial this evaluation would be. What do you think they'll decide? The commander tilted her head, considering. In 1 Earth year, I have witnessed both incredible progress and frustrating setbacks. Your kind still argues, fights, disagrees. And yet, Zira continued, you've embraced the challenge with remarkable enthusiasm. Your scientists collaborate with beings from 12 different worlds. Your artists create works that even Lyraxians find moving. Your children learn about planets they may one day visit. The Council cannot ignore this. Susan smiled, hope warming her heart. Will you stay? If they grant us full membership. Zira turned, all 4 eyes focusing on Susan, her scales shifting to a deep, resonant gold yes. The Imperium has existed for 10,000 years, following the same patterns, living by the same rules. Your world reminds us what it means to see possibilities rather than just probabilities. That is worth preserving. As the sun cleared the horizon, casting golden light across the landscape, 2 beings from worlds light years apart stood side by side. Their friendship, unlikely, impossible, by all logical measures, had changed the course of human history, opening doors to a future filled with both challenges and wonders beyond imagination. You dare gaze at me, Zira said softly, echoing their first meeting. But now the words held no challenge, only affection. Susan smiled, meeting the commander's eyes without hesitation. Always, she replied, because you're beautiful. And in that moment, the distance between their worlds seemed not so vast after all.